Hello, my name is Matt Ohrt, and I'm here with a new friend and colleague named Bill Schmidtknecht. And make sure I pronounce your name correctly, Bill Schmidtknecht. It's pronounced Nick, so forgive me. And Bill has been gracious enough to give me a few minutes of his time. And my goal here is, if you know me, in fact, I start out every talk that I'm unsophisticated, so please don't expect any fancy music or colors or pictures, and maybe someday that'll happen. But I'm looking to have a genuine discussion with Bill today. Bill is from small town Wisconsin, and I believe you're going to want to hear a story, whether you're working in healthcare or whether you're receiving healthcare. And guess what? That second one just included all of us. I think this is an important message to hear. So thanks, Bill, for taking the time today. And maybe you could just introduce yourself, and then we can jump in.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate this conversation and the relationship we've been forming. So, and like as colleagues and good friends, I hope someday.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, I'm Bill Schmidtknecht. I have a wife, Shannon. I have a son, two sons, Cole and Dane. Unfortunately, my wife Shannon and I lost our son Cole to what we say is the greed and tactics of the top pharmacy benefit managers. And that's why it's so important to listen today. Our story is one of many stories out there. And unfortunately, we had a very tragic story at the end of this, the ending was very tragic for us. But my son Cole, who was 22, back in January of 2024, with the new benefit year coming on, he went to fill his, well, let me just back up a little bit. Cole was an asthmatic. I'm an asthmatic, exactly the same. We actually worked at the same company and had the same insurance. We'll just lay the story here. And Cole went in to fill his Advair discus and pick up his albuterol rescue inhaler on January 10th of 2024 at a chain pharmacy. When Cole went there, he went there with one of his friends, and they were getting their prescriptions. And when Cole got to the counter, he, asked for his prescriptions, and long and short of it, he got his albuterol inhaler. But when it came to his Advair discus, he learned that it was $539.19. Cole was 22, worked full time, had full insurance. But at 22 years of age, over $500 is a critical price point, and he had to make a decision that evening at that chain pharmacy of get my prescription, pay rent. The unique thing was Cole was used to paying $66 roughly for his Advair discus, and that price jump was crazy. Well, Cole walked out that evening. That was on January 10th, like I said. January 15th, I get a text message from my son, Cole. Says he's having a hard time breathing. And I replied back on the text message, which was very common, just said, get to the hospital, do what you got to do. Make sure you're using all your stuff you have at the house. Well, about 30 to 40 minutes later, I get a phone call from Cole, and I could tell he was having an asthma attack by his breathing on the phone. And he was concerned about his insurance and what he should say when he goes to the hospital. And at that point, I just said, Cole, don't worry about your insurance. I'll send you the information. Get to the hospital, call 911, whatever you got to do. I could hear the asthma attack in his voice. And being that we are very familiar with asthma in our family, I wasn't immediately alarmed to a high degree because we've had this before. This is an asthma attack. These are controllable. You can fix this stuff. Well, he said, no problem. I'm going to the hospital. My roommate happens to be home tonight. He's going to give me a ride. Well, knowing where Cole lived and very close to the Appleton Medical Center on an average day with traffic, 5 minutes, 6 minutes away, roughly, I don't know. But that evening that he went, it was a terribly cold Wisconsin night. And there just had an ice storm across the state. And from what we learned as he walked outside to get in the car, his asthma attack kicked in severely. He was struggling to breathe on the ride to the hospital. His roommate was getting there as fast as possible, was holding his hand, and Cole stopped breathing on the way to the hospital and showed up lifeless at the Appleton emergency room, Appleton Medical Center emergency room. Some back and forth on text messaging with his roommate, this and that. And long and short of it, I'm getting a call now from my wife, and I are getting a call from an IC emergency room doctor. Just was told that Cole suffered a massive asthma attack, which turned into cardiac arrest, and that he was being transferred to the intensive care unit in Appleton, Wisconsin. Worst call we could have ever got in our life. We packed up our stuff and started the drive to Appleton. And because of that ice storm, it was a long drive. We got there. My wife, my other son, Cole's younger brother, and we got up to the Appleton Medical Center at 2 o'clock in the morning and saw what we thought the phone call was bad, and saw Cole on life support with tubes coming out of him. And the doctors are talking to us and just telling us everything. The one thing that sticks out in my head was when he arrived at the hospital and they had to resuscitate him, he had had such a bad asthma attack that his throat was essentially closed, and they could barely even get a tube in to get him breathing again. And that just showed the suffering that he probably went through and broke our hearts even more. Long and short of it, 6 tedious days in the ICU with amazing medical staff at the Appleton Medical Center. And, we had ups and downs, but we lost Cole. It was January 21st at 10:06 p.m.
I'm so sorry, Bill. And the reason for this call is to continue to get the word out there. And these are real stories. These are things that it won't happen to me. And they are happening to us. And it's unacceptable. You and your family and Shannon now have had a year to grieve. And I don't, I've lost my father a couple years ago, and but I can't imagine what you're going through. I think to lose a child, I don't think is the same. It's I won't begin to pretend that I understand how you feel.
Yeah, well, and I feel your compassion, and that helps a lot, Matt. And knowing what you've done for the healthcare industry and what you've brought to this whole messed up system, I'll just say, is enlightening and positive, brings some positive to us a little bit, and as we learned everything, how I get my drive today. So back to the January 21st at 10:05 p.m. or 10:00, we'll say 10:05 p.m. I was in the room with Cole. Shannon and Dane had to step out. It was not a pretty situation. He was off life support at this point, and it's not like he was snoring, we'll say, and gasping for air as the last couple minutes came. I was able to be in the room with an awesome nurse named Doug, and he comforted me, kind of walked me through things, occupied me, and finally he says, "Bill, this is it." And I put my head on his chest, and I heard Cole's last breath, heartbeat. I know it was a machine, but it wasn't a machine, but I know it wasn't whatever. But I heard his last breath, and that moment put a drive in me to fix this problem, to do something, get justice for Cole. We hadn't learned much at that point. We didn't know much, but that started a trajectory for my wife and I of unknown, I'll say. Well, we moved on from there, started doing the celebration of life. I had to make arrangements for my son to move on and, everything like that as far as his final resting and everything. And my wife and I did all that. We did our celebration of life and tried to just put our life back together. This is a couple weeks later by this point. And we knew one fact that we could not understand. Cole had gone to the pharmacy to get his Advair, which he had been on since he was 13 years old. And his roommate had told us that he had showed him his phone or something, and that Cole did not get his Advair because it was over $500. And that's all we knew at that point. Crazy. And we didn't know anything.
How often is that refill? Is that a monthly, or how often is that
That would have been
refill?
a monthly supply.
Oh,
Sometimes it would be 90 days, depending on the
yeah.
prescription, the way it was written, but 30 to 90 days is what it would have been. Back to how I mentioned earlier, I had asthma. Well, as
Mhm.
we're trudging through our life and trying to figure out how we live and move forward, I just sent my prescription in for my Advair to my local independent pharmacy, and it didn't even phase me. Well, my wife was in town. She went to pick it up on a Saturday, 5 minutes before they closed, and that's kind of important because this is going to show you why independent pharmacies are
Mhm.
amazing, amazing. Shannon walked into that pharmacy, spoke with our pharmacist, who we knew very well. She knew of Cole's tragedy. Um, and as Shannon walked up the counter, as she tells the story, there was a note on the counter saying, "No longer covered." And
Mhm.
that was my Advair. And the pharmacist informed Shannon that my Advair wasn't covered anymore either. And that the difference that this pharmacist did was she wouldn't let Shannon leave. She said, "We are going to find something for Bill to have. You're not leaving till we figure this out." Well, several minutes went by, phone calls were being made, computers, buttons, whatever. And the pharmacist looked at Shannon and goes, "Holy shit, this is what happened to Cole."
Mhm.
Shannon had to drive home with that on her mind. Thank God she was with a friend, got her home. And this is where it kind of really started here for us. I mean, the mission, the reform mission. She got home. I remember
Mhm.
standing in the living room, and we crying, talking, hugging, because holy crap, we know that something is absolutely wrong. Why did we both get denied? Why didn't Cole get what I just got from my pharmacist? And I just remember one comment we said, "This just can't happen again. This just cannot happen again." And that is the basis for everything that we're doing. There's two facts:
Mhm.
justice for Cole and all others. And it just cannot happen again. No one else is going to
Mhm.
die. So that brings us to where we are today. And it's
So,
been a long
Mhm.
journey so far, and it hasn't even been that far.
right?
So,
For
yeah.
those listening, you said you have asthma. For those, and I think we have those that don't have asthma have a general idea. Could you just briefly explain what an asthma attack feels like?
Yeah. I mean, an asthma attack is well, what's the best way to say it? Your chest gets really tight. You'll get a wheeze in your breath. But what happens until you can get that initial under control? It's scary. It is very scary. It's like you're suffocating,
Mhm.
standing there, sitting there. As you take your breath, there is no breath coming in, and
Mhm.
it's just it's a panicking effect. And I don't wish it on anybody. I mean, like, it's craziness. And
And asthma is somewhat common. Is that fair? I mean, I mean, you said
in our family, my
yeah.
wife has it, I have it, Cole had it. I mean, and like, you talk to people, and I don't know the statistics, but it's very
Yeah.
common out there. And there's different forms of it too. Cole unfortunately started when he was just a baby. I remember
Mhm.
taking him to the hospital. We had to do the nebulizer treatments and the little
Mhm.
oxygen tents. And I remember the oxygen tents from when I was a kid. I mean, like, the little flow vent that we had to start him on with the little tube with little bears on it. I mean, we lived with this with him forever. And
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people go to. And it's kind of, I'm going to just shift a little bit, and I sit and know this industry as I'm learning it. I mentioned that word flow vent and the
Mhm.
little bear chamber tube so the little baby can have his medicine. What I've heard, Matt, from some very highly professional doctors is now Flovent's being messed with, and it's being pulled from formularies across the country. Sorry.
So for something, right? I'm not a person that believes everything can be fixed, and a company or plan should spend $3 million on, right? I mean, we all have to be realistic, but we're talking about asthma here. We're talking about pennies on the dollar. And what was the explanation you got? So it was removed from the formulary? Is
Yeah,
that what I
there
know?
was an
Yeah.
unnecessary medical or unmedical switch of the formulary for Cole and for me. It was literally removed from the formulary going
Mhm.
into 2024. The Advair Discus was replaced with a name brand medicine
Yeah.
not a generic,
Yeah.
and you needed a prior authorization, and there were quantity limits. And
Yeah.
my pharmacist who got me mine actually made the phone calls to get the prior authorization going and getting things done that day. Cole, like I said, Cole at the chain pharmacy never got that opportunity.
And red tape and no support, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't understand healthcare. I saw a statistic that said 96% of members or employees in a company or members can't explain copay, deductible, coinsurance, max out of pocket, the four basic components of a
Well,
plan.
and even prior to all of this, I remember, knowing some about my insurance plan. I know I had a big deductible that I'd probably never meet because we were fairly healthy and I pay my premiums. I get a good copay at the pharmacy and I only pay $20 when I go to the doctor. You think things are good.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when something happens is so crazy because you don't have the coverage sometimes that you think you have, or it's not as easy because of the complexity of the system. And I believe this is at times designed for profit and profit over patients. And, it's sad to say where our medical industry has gone and the profit that it has to have. I understand as a businessman, that's what I did before this. I was running a rather large business. I was in charge of a large company, a very specific portion of that company, and I understand business and profit. And we all got to keep our lights on when we're selling stuff. There's no fact about it. We don't got to be greedy about things. And what I have learned over the last year is insane. It doesn't even seem rational.
It's almost like the more you learn, the madder you get, right? And
absolutely. I've started some social media and I go by Angry Dad. I mean, like, that's the reality of it. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in any of that other crazy stuff that's happening in America with vigilante justice, nothing like that. I believe in getting justice and doing it right so there's a lasting effect. And that is what I'm working on daily now. I mean, my life is making sure that we get possible top pharmacy benefit manager reform. And that means making sure that they're transparent, that they're following their own rules of notification if they're changing formularies, or, and not being greedy. That's my life, and then on top of it, the new job I took in this industry, I can directly affect patient care. I actually work for a pharmacy benefit manager now.
It seems, and I feel like I'm a pretty forgiving, grace-giving person, but it feels like just the more and more I learn, it's hard not to get mad. I think any father in your shoes, angry might be right? There's a lot, you've probably had these same feelings. There's a lot of, I think we'd be tempted to do a lot more, but in terms of violence or something, which wouldn't be acceptable per se, but we saw the reaction to what it really was a murder, right, of the CEO. I've heard recordings of what happens in those BUCA meetings. I've heard recordings and I've heard them talk, and and it's not good stuff. It's all games to make more money, and it's discarding life. It's not a value for life. And but the American sentiment, the American reaction to that was shocking to some, right? That something like, in one case, 80% of the emojis were laughing with tears, and not sympathy. Oh, this person had a family, and I think we all empathize with the family, but I just can't get past these recordings I've heard, because I know what he was doing inside these meetings every day, and I know the decisions that were being made, and I think we all maybe we all
I've
need
never
to
been privy to those high level meetings, but there's a video I got sent to me by a pharmacist one time, and it was I don't know if it was properly recorded or not, but he had like 4 pharmacies, and he had dropped the PBM's net profit contracts. He said, "Screw you! I can't survive. I'm out." Well, one of the major top PBMs, one of the top 3, set up a Zoom meeting with him, and he recorded the Zoom meeting as they tried to get him to come back under contract with them. And as they just simply explained their net profit contract, and talking about minus 27% on average. I was like, what does that mean? And they were talking about the sustainability of the profit. They're going to lose money. But if you don't like that, you get nothing. Nothing. If you don't want to do it, that's fine.
Right.
And I saw that video that one time and I was like, holy crap, this is, I heard that was happening. And when I saw it, my God, it blew my mind. It does not seem possible. We're in America. We're a free country. We're a capitalist country, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And it blows my mind.
Yeah. And you and I are both busy, and we're both, but and I'd like to hear about your career change. But I want to make just a statement, so taking the time to do this, right, is one of many measures. But how often I think, and this is why that reaction to that murder of that CEO is that so often people are run over by big insurance, and there's no voice, and there's nothing they can do about it, and they've got their wages garnished. In some cases, they've got liens on their homes. In some cases, family members have been unnecessarily sick or died, and no one has a voice. So if 5 people listen to this, I think a lot more will. But if 5 people listen to this, it's worth it. If one person listens to this, it's worth it. But we've got to get this word out there that I've been saying big insurance is starting to lose credibility daily. They've been riding their coattails of their former behavior, which way back it wasn't that bad. Whether it's new CEOs or the greed of Wall Street or whatever it may be. And I'm a capitalist too. But if uncontrolled, if you get a monopoly and it's uncontrolled, people start suffering. And in our great country, to me, this is just unacceptable. And I'll be angry with you. And I don't feel what you feel, and I won't pretend to. But I will be angry with you. And I hope a lot of people will be angry with you. So it's my understanding that you've and even a little bit of shift of my career. I was an HR person, if you will, and I've shifted, but you've changed your whole career. You were a business manager. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I used to sell truck parts. It's more than that, but that's the industry I was in. I was in heavy duty truck parts. And, once I started learning everything that was just wrong about this industry, from the top to the side, and I'm not even saying to the bottom, just the whole thing. And I started some advocacy. I started working with the Federal Trade Commission, giving testimony, and I learned a little bit more. And then I picked up some more knowledge on really what was going on. Well, during that whole journey, and there's a lot of this journey that we could definitely chat about if you want to get something specific, but I met a gentleman who's been in pharmacy his whole life, major pharmacy, we'll say. And he's also seen the degradation and the change and everything negative about the way prescription benefits are handled, for example. He started a PBM. He started his own prescription benefit manager corporation, but he did one unique thing. Made sure it was a public benefit corporation. Now, I understand a little bit about that. But basically, when you operate as a public benefit corporation, and Matt, maybe you know about this too a little bit. You can maybe correct me when I state something wrong here if I do. But the one thing that I know, we don't run back to our shareholders bragging about all the money that we have to make. And our shareholders don't yell at us for not making billions of dollars. They enter this agreement knowing it's a public benefit corporation. There's going to be a return on investment someday, potentially, and it's going to be fair and equal, I guess. That's the best way I can say it. So this company I'm working with now is a new form of a pharmacy benefit manager. But then again, it's back to the original. When they started, they were there to shuffle some papers, be the middleman, negotiate some prices, make the pharmacy's lives a little more easy, make the insurance plans and all that stuff. Well, we're back to basics where I work, but we are unique in what we do too, because what we've identified to the industry is that as the top pharmacy benefit managers operate, they're complex and they're non-transparent. And that means complex computer systems, outdated computer systems, and really no transparency, we did a couple things. We brought in a specialized team of what we call our patient care advocates. Their life is to make sure what happened to my son doesn't happen to somebody sometimes. I mean, like in my son's situation, it probably wouldn't have happened because our pharmacy benefit manager corporation prefers generics over name brands. When we build our formularies, we don't go for greed. We don't pay attention to the rebates that are stacked on top of the drugs to get better placement on our formularies. We take all that money and it goes back into the plan, if not back to the plan owner. I mean, like that's kind of the intention. And if they want to know anything, it's there for them. But our PCAs will take the extra step that they'll damn near have if there is an issue at a pharmacy, before you even get there, it might be fixed. You won't even know it's wrong.
I've heard PBMs, and then we're talking about the big PBMs. I mean, you've got what's called vertical integration, so they own all the chains, so they can move money around. That 15% MLR, according to ACA, gets manipulated, I think, in many cases. And I've heard there's 20, I forget the number, 23 or 27 revenue streams for PBM, but it's just this constant drive to make more money at the expense of anyone, and it doesn't matter. And it's just what are even the words? We could come up with some words, but I'm not sure they really describe
mafia-like tactics is what I like to say. They're extorting people and whatnot.
And then people will say that the healthcare mafia gives the other mafia a bad name. There's, I mean, it
does. I mean, and they make a hell of a lot more money.
It's just, and a monopoly is just like extortion, right? Give me 10% of your profits, and I'll protect you. Protect you from who?
The healthcare office. You got the top. Then you got the healthcare plan, then you got the doctors, and then you have the insurance, and then you own the PBMs, and then you own the pharmacy. And I don't know, I've heard some rumor, and Matt, maybe you know this. I believe some of them are making some investments in the actual manufacturing now too. So, but for sure, we can say like United Health Group, for example. You got the health group, you got United Healthcare, UMR, which is a division, PBM, Optum Rx. It's all there. Vertically integrated down to control your medicine, take care of your competition by steering patients from the independent pharmacies back to their mail order, which brings in another level of complexity, because if you have a temperature controlled medication, do you want that shipping out of Mesa, Arizona on a United States postal truck in 100-degree weather coming to Wisconsin and 40 below weather? Because tell me that medicine's not going to be jacked up. And that's just one facet of the steering that happens, which we all know that some top CEOs under a congressional hearing may have lied under oath about how they do that, with burdens or tons and tons of factual examples given, and that's where it really gets deep in my mind, is that their money is so powerful, they can just lie and expect no ramification. And that's the tip of the iceberg.
That's the weird thing about corruption, right? Is once you have so full and mafia control, then you use all that money that you've earned wrongly, and you use it for all these bad things. I mean, it's no wonder that they shut off the transparency. I mean, if you're a thief and you're gonna rob somebody, do you do it at noon, or do you do it in the middle of the night? Right. I mean, so it's no wonder that this whole thing, that transparency is a theme, that if people were to really see what's going on, I think they'd fall out of their chair.
Well, think about this. The gate clauses in the contracts. The pharmacists can't even tell you there's an option sometimes, or if there's an alternative, or they violate their contract, and then what do? They get clawbacks from the pharmacy, the top pharmacy. They claw back for violating the contract. I know a pharmacist owner who had many, many stores. He tried to take a run at the PBMs one time, and when it was all said and done, it costed him hundreds of thousands of dollars, more than $500,000. I'll just say that, because he scratched them a little bit, and that was it. But their retaliation guised as a
Yeah.
doctor didn't check a box on a
Right.
medical claim to predict how long someone might be on insulin for, and charge back multiple times to, like I said, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That gentleman had to step away from his pharmacies in fear of them all shutting down. And at that point,
Right.
there was over 70 of them. And it wasn't like he owned all 70. These
Right.
were a conglomerate of, he was part of it, and there was investors, and these investors, like the investor, a pharmacy owner, a husband, a wife. And but they shut down their competition is what they do, just like a mafia would do. And it's insane.
As most Americans might say or think, right? May God have mercy on their souls. I mean, we're really fighting.
Well, and back to that,
Yeah.
my life has changed. I have a website called patientprotector.us, and it's just that. Everything on that website is to protect somebody. We're a voice for the people. I've been doing advocacy now across the nation, and in Washington, in Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Right.
And I do this every day. This is what I do. I mean, my pharmacy, my job allows me to do that now, as I make sure that our patient care advocates are top notch.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm fighting the other side of it, talking to legislators and pharmacy groups fighting. And one unique thing we got an opportunity to be part of, though, we bounce back to that word mafia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got approached by some producers who are anonymous because of fear of retaliation from the pharmacy benefit managers, and neither of them are even in pharmacy anymore, or the people aren't in pharmacy, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
They're producing a docu-series. They've got the video made. They've traveled the country 12,000 miles, got story after story. And I didn't mention this yet. March is a unique month for the Schmidtknecht family. 16, 18, 21. What does that mean? Cole's mom's birthday is the 16th. Cole's birthday is the 18th, and mine is the 21st. And those numbers ring in my head. As we get closer to all of this, and this the second birthday we don't have with him, we are actually just learned the first episode of a docu-series of potentially 5 episodes is going to release on March 18th on Cole's birthday.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And that first episode is dedicated to Cole. It's not all about Cole, but it's going to blow the lid just on everything we've been talking. That first episode's going to be shocking.
And that wasn't even planned, right? That just happened.
No, that I can tell you how that all kind of really simply happened. There was some thought about this docu-series.
Right.
And when these producers learned of Cole's story, it put a drive in them to make it happen so they can get the word out across the country, because we got to stop it, honestly.
Right. Yeah. And thank you for the work you're doing. And I think that, right, angry dad, and I love it. I love you just stepping up and doing that to help others. That anger can get us in trouble, right? We can.
It can get you in trouble.
We can do wrong things.
I gotta say something. This funny. This shirt I have on right here.
Yeah.
This hat was the first thing I wore the first time I called myself Angry Dad and started some social media. And I was never on social media, really. It was me yelling at my phone because I was so upset thinking about Cole. And now it's a voice. It's a voice out there helping people. I've been involved with many people trying to get their Brio, their Advair, learning things about this industry that the average person doesn't know. And I don't expect people to have a deep understanding, but they need to. They need to educate themselves. And at our website, patientprotector.us, it's all there, but yet it's still hard to just get that stuff done. And we got to fix it. We got to continue our push. And this docu-series, as it gets released, is going to be very unique, I believe. And it's going to just open up another information source and exposure.
Yeah, and what I'm sensing is that anger is turned into motivation for you, right? That you're that get out of your way, look out, and I love that. And people are surprised when I say this because I'm 6'5" and 250, but I was bullied as a kid. I was bullied for some reason most of my childhood, every grade, all the way through high school, off and on. And I had friends, but I don't know why. But I'll tell you, what it did is it ingrained something in me, is that when I see someone being oppressed or abused, I can't help but step in. And that's part of my motivation in this healthcare, is that we have a lot of hardworking Americans being abused in a large variety of ways, financially and health-wise, and stories like yours that make me angry. And
Well, and back to
yeah.
Cole, one thing that I'll say about him, he fought for the little guy. He
Mhm.
got that from me. I always
Mhm.
stand her up or two, kind of like what you just said there.
Mhm.
I didn't have the same experience and whatever, but
Mhm.
I just have always been that little outspoken a little bit, and Cole picked that up. Father like son,
Mhm.
or son like father, whatever you want to say.
Right. Right.
And he would not. He was such a unique individual. Had his own thoughts, his own views on the world. Wasn't perfect. Wasn't naughty. He was just Cole, and he was
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
And I know that part of my drive is his voice coming through me too, because he would not accept what happened to himself either, and he would want nobody else getting hurt.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have words, Bill, other than I will do anything I can to help you. And I think just getting the word out here, and we're coming up on the 45 minutes. We can always do more of
Yeah,
these, and
yeah,
people.
absolutely. Well, you know
I
what?
think you and I could
This
talk
is not
actually all
going to be
day.
fixed after this episode. We
Right.
know that.
And that's
We've got
yeah.
so much. We can do some reoccurring stuff. Let's keep the people updated. Let's get back here. Let's let them
Mhm.
know what's happening. Currently, I'll just really fast say I
Yeah.
just started a
Mhm.
PBM reform mission in the state of Wisconsin. I didn't start it, but I pushed
Mhm.
it really hard. I was at a press
Mhm.
conference the other day. We introduced for 2025 the Coles Act,
Mhm.
protecting patients and independent pharmacies for the state of Wisconsin. And
Mhm.
I spent my week at the Wisconsin State Capitol in 2 days. I did 62 educational visits to our elected officials in 2 days.
Nice.
And I'm getting co-sponsors, and we're kicking ass in Wisconsin. That's what we're doing. And we're going to help lead the way to the other amazing states that are already doing this and the states that aren't there. But it's going to come. It's going to come. And there's going to be a lot more coming after this. That's for sure.
And I think Americans, you had that event in Rio, which looks like Rio, Wisconsin. It's actually Rio
Yeah.
because it was named after Ohio and they misread it. So they just went with Rio, is the story I got.
R10. We call it R10.
R10. And
Yeah.
and over something like 250 people were there that night. And I saw another event up here where it had the big pharma bus, and I don't remember the name of it, but
Oh, the big red bus.
the big red bus. They had 50
I
chairs.
attended an event with those guys. Little
Yeah.
story about that. That is not paid for by pharmaceutical. That's not paid for by the PBMs. It's not
Yeah.
paid by lobbyists. It's paid for by people that are affected by cystic fibrosis
Okay.
because of course, the big pharma and all the problem with
Right.
the medicines and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
That's a donated
And it had
campaign. I got to meet.
signatures. It had
Yeah,
thousands of signatures. Yeah. And
we're on there.
nice. Nice. I didn't
Uh,
get a chance to sign it. But they
yep,
they were
Angry Dan
expecting
and Cole are on the bus.
50. They had been 50 chairs set up in this room, and I think over 200 showed up. And I just think there's an American sentiment here. Um, I don't think Americans feel like they have a voice, and I think we need to give them a voice. And in many cases, we need to be their voice because they're not educated on this.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to share that the listeners can support you, or how they can reach out to you, or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do have social media. I'm not a big social media superstar, nothing like that. But if you get on social media, any platform, look for Angry Dad WI. So it's at Angry Dad WI. The best way to get this, you can find me on here, is my website though, patientprotector.us or patientprotector.us. That website has contact forms on. You can contact us through that website. You can also learn everything about pharmacy benefit managers and the practices on that website. You can educate yourself. But no, share your story on that website if you have something. We are a voice for you.
Mm.
And patientprotector.us is for everybody. And, it's a very good website. People claim that we're sometimes not grassroots. We are 100% grassroots organization. We got lucky and get some people that help us design a beautiful website.
Mhm.
And it's a grassroots organization, and that's what's going to take this across the finish line, the grassroots out there, and the voices of us. And when I say us, it's you, it's everybody that's affected. As Matt started this podcast for the people that are involved in healthcare or receiving healthcare, we'll say.
I think you make a great point, and that I said that in Omaha yesterday. I was talking, and I can't say that none of this will happen, but I would say this, that if you're waiting for the government to fix this, I would say you might be waiting a long time. If you're waiting for the industry to fix this, you'll be 10 lives in and realize that it's not broken for them. It's working just fine. They're actually protecting the status quo. I believe the only way that we are going to fix this is to actually be Americans. And we've been spoiled a little while in our generations. Our forefathers could tell us, and foremothers could tell us some stories about suffering and sacrifice. But if we remember what America's about, we the people, right, are going to have to fix this in one way or another. And so Bill is another angry soldier in this army, and more power to you, Bill. And yeah, let's keep in touch. So
thank you for the time today, Matt, and we'll be talking soon.
Sounds good. Have a great day, and keep fighting the good fight, my friend.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
There we go.